When I look around in the room that we're all seated in now, all I can say is, wow. And the people on the panel, wow. I'm a journalist, I talk a lot, so it's very shocking for me to be at a loss for words. It just goes to show what kind of talent that we have here. I've had an opportunity to talk with some of those young people on the panel today, and the most important thing that I saw, not only through conversation, but in their eyes, is that they know how to defy the spirit of fear. And every single person in the room right now, be it an entrepreneur, a thought leader, somebody who moves policy, a person who is in education, has a role to play in entrepreneurship. So before we start our incredible panel, I can see it, I know it's gonna be incredible. Before we start, I'd like us to do a little small exercise that will be amazing. All right, so I would like us to do a small little exercise, right? This exercise is meant for us to sort of channel our inner very young entrepreneurs who are on the panel, so that whatever role that we each individually play, be it for me as a journalist through storytelling or as an educator, we're able to do what we're supposed to do to support entrepreneurs and to support entrepreneurship. Can you all stand up for me for a second? So, how many of you have heard of Amy Cuddy and her research? Anyone? Amy Cuddy. Yeah, I hear a lot of, and I'm happy that it's women who are saying yes, because this is very important. So in her research, she found that most of the time, especially where women are concerned, they'll shrug themselves. In boardrooms, in meetings, they'll literally like try to stand on the corner, they have their hands folded. They don't have that energy to showcase their talent and what they have to say. So because I want this conversation to not just be a conversation for all of us, I want us to be able to go out there and do what we need to do by playing our part. I need us to find, including myself, our voice through this exercise. So it's the Wonder Woman pose. I'm happy that there's a lot of women in the room. For the sake of men, I will say the superhero pose. So can you all put your hands just literally on your sides like this and open your legs, right? Just spread your legs a little bit, and while you're doing this, I want you to think of that purpose that you know you have, especially where entrepreneurship in Africa is concerned. And whatever it is that's making you afraid or not being able to go after it, and say, after this conversation, after these young people inspire me, I'm going to go after it. So you'll feel different after this. While your hands are on your hips, please look up and breathe in and out, just for 15 seconds. Let's do it. In, out. In, out. One last time, in, out. Thank you, you may take your seats. So this wasn't just for fun. I'm sure you feel more calm and different. Your mind is a little bit clear. So the young people on the stage here are going to share and inspire us with their stories and tell us why they defied what the universe is about. Earlier, during the teaching conversation, the panel spoke about how we grow up and we're told to go to school, get a job, become a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. But you guys said, no, we are going to become entrepreneurs. Tando, I'll start with you. Was this a choice for you, or was it because of circumstance?
I think it's one of those things where you're driven more by the pain of the problem you're facing, more than anything else. Entrepreneurship for me was not, I wanted to become an entrepreneur. It was, I saw a problem that I was facing myself, and I thought that instead of complaining, I could be part of the solution.
And you can all take the question.
Yeah, as for me, I don't even think I knew what entrepreneurship was when I was starting. It's more of, I was telling somebody it's more of survival mode at first. And then along the way, I realized this is bigger than myself. So I needed to develop this, and then that's why I'm here.
As for me, I think it's more of a passion. So I'm so passionate about young people, children. Yeah. So I identified a problem which was facing young people by then, and that's 2010. And that's when I was like, I think I can do something on this. Yeah.
So for me, I am quite obviously a young black woman, so conformment and confinement is a very strange concept to me. So entrepreneurship was definitely a choice. I chose to not be part of the go to school to get into university, to get into employment path. I chose to control kind of my own destiny and paycheck.
That's very important. As you're speaking, I'm reminded of a quote that says, if the opportunity doesn't knock on the door, build it. So that's what you exactly did, build the door. And as you were speaking, Tando, I was reminded by a conversation that I had with the founder of Capitec, Michael Leroux. He said that for you to be able to thrive in entrepreneurship, you don't need to only identify a problem, but make sure that you serve the masses. And when you serve the masses, honestly, money follows you. And Capitec is one of the biggest and fastest growing banks that we have in the continent. Have you found this philosophy to be true?
Sure. I think with every problem, you're identifying a certain group of people. And I think what the founder of Capitec was saying was, by the word masses, not necessarily a quantity game, but it's about believing in something that's greater than yourself and your own personal problems. So you have to find a common thread between a large group of people and really serve them and their problem. You might start out identifying it as a problem for yourself, but until it's a problem that's shared by a lot of people, you're not really going to make a lot of impact. I think I remember there was a quote I read somewhere that said, if you help a million people, you're definitely going to make R1 million. Yeah. If you help 1 billion people, you're sure as hell going to make 1 billion. Yeah. So it's literally in the fact that if you're able to create value, it should be reciprocated by some form of a gain. Yeah.
Sure. And Vanessa, you spoke about how you had no idea what entrepreneurship is when you started. Would you say there is some sort of relationship between entrepreneurship and purpose in terms of what it is you're supposed to be doing in life?
Yeah, there is a link between entrepreneurship and purpose. I believe entrepreneurship is not just only starting a business. So when you realize what exactly you're supposed to do, your purpose in life, you, like somebody was saying here, even when you're employed, you still are an entrepreneur. So it's definitely linked. It's definitely kind of like something that goes alongside each other. Yes.
And does drive in entrepreneurship mean that you have higher chances of survival? You may take the question next.
Basically, okay, let me use myself first. As I said, passion was my thing. Yeah, and I followed the passion. So it was more of what I love to do in this life. So by then, I'm a coder. I used to love coding. And when I looked at young people, by then, unemployment was the big issue, of which it is still up to now. Yeah, so I was like, if these young people are complaining every day, there is no unemployment outside there, and yet I say I have a passion for young people. How can I do this? How can I help them to use whatever they have? It doesn't matter they are from which field, whether it's medicine, whether it's sport, provided they have a passion with whatever they have, they can turn that into something else. Using myself as a case study, now I have managed to help young people, so many of them, and they do have that belief also. Yeah.
Sure. I like that you touch on the unemployment rate. In South Africa alone, 28% of people here are unemployed. And in Africa, the youth make up the majority of our population, yet we struggle the most. And Elena, please tell me how you have faced challenges within this, because your fellow panelists mentioned that you need to be passionate and you can do it and help. But passion doesn't pay bills. In entrepreneurship, there's rent to be paid, there is employee salaries to be made, and there's telephone bills, there's transport, and the costs continue to pile up.
So what is your question?
My question to you is, what have you seen through, and how have you been able to navigate through that?
As an entrepreneur, you definitely need passion. As a very young entrepreneur, there are so many challenges that you will face. Firstly, people will have doubts in you because they don't want to invest in someone young, because there is a perception that when you're young, you make dumb decisions. Young, dumb, and 21. That's a thing, right? So you need the passion to keep you going when people don't believe in you. So I found that passion really drove me. You need to be your own cheerleader, and you need to know money. Financial literacy is a big thing, because if you're not financially literate, people will try to scam you. You're young, so I'm sure this person doesn't know about taxes. I'm sure this person doesn't know that they might source this cheaper here and where. And you need to make sure everybody gets paid. We want to do, no, I'll do it right now. I'll do it for free because I want people to know what I'm doing. And I'm young and I just want to get the word out there. But you need to make money even in your startup phase.
Can I just touch on what Alina's talking about? I think one thing I must say that's always interesting, it's the balls versus the passion thing. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. But there are a lot of organizations, especially in the tech space, where it's not even driven by passion. Guys are building to exit. I don't think you start on, no, it's a real thing. People are building organizations with the idea to sell it to someone. So I'm going to build X to sell it to Google. I'm building Y to sell it to Amazon. That's not creating, it doesn't often create real value. And those are businesses that often don't work out. I do think that we need to remove this idea that they're mutually exclusive events. I think you should be driven by a passion, but very quickly you need to find a way to convert that passion into value for someone. And that value for someone is what will monetize it and pay bills and pay for electricity. But if you don't have both, you can be very passionate, but you won't have a business. Then you're probably should be looking more towards some sort of a social enterprise or an NGO. If you're a money-making machine, but you're not really creating value, I doubt you're going to last. Yeah.
And you'll say in Africa we're looking for businesses that create value, wouldn't you?
100%. I think we have real problems. And I think one of the most amazing experiences for myself was being part of Anzisha, because I grew up in Durban, but then I moved to Cape Town, and very quickly my perspective on like the world kind of changed. I was super focused on tech, and like you're thinking about things that are like going to happen in the next 50 years, 100 years, but on this continent there are issues that are far more pressing, that are more important. It's like we're willing to put money to put people on the moon and to like go into interplanetary travel, but we have real problems that need to be solved first. And I think that's where, in the context of Africa, our solution should first just focus on value to help people. And you should be able to make quite a bit of money from just that.
Sure. Vanessa, picking up on that point, we find that many Africans just emulate what the West is doing, and we forget that our problems are peculiar and very different from the rest of the world. Have you seen this to be true in your industry?
Somehow, yes, it is true. Many of us are like focused on what we are going to gain at the end of the day instead of creating added value to your community or to your country. So while we are starting businesses, that is what I always tell young people that come up to me and tell them, you know what, look for a problem and solve that. Look for something and then work on that, something that is pressing in your community. You don't have to, because you've seen somebody, I don't know, on Forbes magazine and they are doing technology, I don't know, they are involved in very high level things, and then you also want to be famous and then you think that's the field you should go to. No, look for something that is true to you, something that is affecting your community directly. Solve that, and that, I'm sure, with solving it, it will pay the bills also. Yeah.
And moving on, has being young played to your advantage or to your disadvantage?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so As for now, I can't call myself young, but, but when I was at his age.
What do you mean?
How old are you again?
21.
You see? You see? Yeah. So when I was at his age, I can say no because we never used to have mentors by then. You see, people like mentors, people you can look at and say, I want to be like that person as role model, for example. Yeah. So as for me, that's why I'm focusing much on passion because I never had someone to look at. Someone who is, I can say, this is my age mate, and I want to be like him, or I'm inspired by him. You see, so it was more of, I love this, and I want to do this, and I'm very sure that I can reach where I want to be. Yeah, by then. But as for now, for
Still young?
But as for now, I think, yeah, it is true. Yeah, it is. So like, I'm 31, and is that young?
Very young.
Really? Is
Yeah,
31
still
young?
Youth ends at 35, so you're still
You're
youth.
still youth.
All right. If it is to start a new business, new business, I can say yes. But since I'm in the same business, which I started 10 years ago, as an incubator, I'm working with young people now. And my job now is to, as you asked her, my job now is to tell these young people that instead of looking at what is working in the Western, let us focus on what we have here in Africa, the problems we have and everything. So these young people, they do have role models of their age. Looking at Anzisha's beneficiaries, they're like, I want to be like Asha Bass, for example. I want to be like Edgar. I want to be like him. It does. Yeah, so age matters a lot.
All right, awesome. And Vanessa, in this whole space of entrepreneurship, have you found that there's a lot of support for youth who are building and trying to become entrepreneurs in the space?
Yes. I should say yes and no. Also, there is a lot of support for young people who are trying to build businesses. But the challenge is those people don't know this support system is there. So it's as well there and not there, because I think it should be a little bit more communicated to young people that, you know what, there is something somewhere that is going to help you to build and scale your business. Yeah.
And Elena, we have spoken a lot about entrepreneurship in general. What I want to know now from you is, what are the challenges that you're currently facing as an entrepreneur that you see other entrepreneurs also face on the continent?
There are many challenges that are similar. I think I'll touch on one that I am currently experiencing as a very young entrepreneur. It's becoming a first-time employer and just kind of understanding that there's a reason that structure is in place and there's a reason that the employer-employee relationship exists. You want to be kind of the young, fun, dynamic, and orthodox employer who is cool and, oh, this is cool. You could take a day off, yes. And this affects the business. This affects how your employee also performs. So this is a challenge that I'm facing right now, is being a first-time employer.
And I agree. Hey, like I recently had to hire, this is funny, right? I had to hire developers, but I train developers. But yeah, I needed developers, and some of the guys I was interviewing were like 27, 30. Here I am, I'm 21, and the guys walk into the room and they're like, okay, so you're the job. Like, yes. And I think the first thing you kind of have to do as a young person sort of looking to hire people at that level is show them your stripes. I think that's the only way you earn some sort of respect. But yeah, I literally had to pull out my code base, and I think that's when the playing field sort of leveled. It was when I could show what I could do. But I think adding to Alina's list of challenges, I think one of the next big ones becomes working with corporates. I think when you start working with big institutions, there's always someone in the organization who's worried about losing their job by giving a young person a chance. So you either get very lucky because there's someone who's crazy enough to do that, give a young person a chance, but in a lot of instances, you're probably not going to get the deals you need because you're looked at, unfortunately, slightly differently because of your age. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll call you Mr. Odo now, since you said you're not very young anymore. Any advice for entrepreneurs on the panel and the ones in the room who face troubles? Because if you don't have the right team that does the right things and respects you, then your business is most likely to fail.
Okay, my first advice to all the young entrepreneurs inside here would be, first of all, to make sure that you are able to convince your parents, your family, to believe in your idea. That should be your number one goal. Because in Tanzania, for example, we do have that problem. Like, I work with young people who are from like public schools. And speaking of public schools, I'm talking of poor people. Now, convincing these kids to come to our programs, again, convincing their parents to join, to accept their kids to join to the program is a challenge, it's a problem. When it comes or when it happens, this young person gets a fund, for example, again, it's an issue because we are talking of money here. Now, if you're a young person, the first thing to do is come up with that idea, share it with your family, share it with your friends. But again, do not expect much from them. You are going to get a lot of discouragement. They are going to discourage you, whether it's your dad, your mom, or your friend. What you need to have is a ball, as he said. Yeah, you need to have that. Yeah, so that is my number one advice. Number two is never quit. Keep on trying. It doesn't matter how much you fail. Never quit. Yeah, that's.
And Tando, you touched earlier on working with corporates. A lot of young entrepreneurs, especially in the tech space like you, when they come up, they try to get funding to make sure that the projects go through, because without money, you cannot get anywhere. So a question to the entire panel is, in your individual countries and in your individual spaces, do you find that it's easy to access funding? If yes, please share with all of us how you make it happen. I'm still looking. And if not, what kind of challenges are you facing, and how do you suggest corporates and investors should look differently at young entrepreneurs?
So earlier we were talking about trusting young people with your money, investors trusting young people with their money. So there are people willing to invest in businesses. But the thing is, how do I trust an 18-year-old with a new business that is just coming up? We are not sure. I might just lose my money. Well, I might be having so much of it, but then even if it's just 100, I don't know, a coin, I don't know, it still hurts to just know that you've put it to waste. And yeah, the resources are very scarce. But then I believe that for the very few resources that we have, together as young people, we can make great use of them. And I'll tell corporates, I'll tell investors to take a leap of faith. They were once there, I believe. Everyone didn't start from up there. Yeah. Somebody used to tell me it's only a graph that starts from up downwards. Yeah. So nobody started from up, just the same way you struggled upwards, and that's believing in the other person. They are going to struggle their way. See whether they are passionate about it, or see whether they are determined about it. Where passion and love maybe will not work. Maybe determination and commitment will work. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll speak on the case of Tanzania. So what I have noticed for young people in Tanzania, we do have a problem of lack of information. See, so most of young people, they don't know that there are more than 40 funds from the government for young people. They don't know that. And even me, I didn't know that till last month. So I just attended a certain session, then I heard of that one. From that, I was like, wow, I'm going to be an ambassador. But speaking of what we have just said, it is very hard for young people in Tanzania to access fund. Yeah, very hard.
You know, on the investors panel, they were having a conversation about how investors don't necessarily invest into a business, they invest into the entrepreneur as well. And right now, Vanessa said, we need to ensure investors take a leap of faith. If you're at the top there, take a leap of faith with someone that's at grassroots level, but it's not just coincidental. It's not going to be a miracle to get the funding. So it's about changing the mindset of how we view young entrepreneurs. It's about understanding that they also have a lot at stake and they're taking a risk already. And to be an entrepreneur and to be able to run successfully a business in the startup phase means you are able to achieve and accomplish and do something. But as young entrepreneurs, it is our duty and due diligence to make sure that people are able to invest in us, that people want to invest in us. And the only way that we can do that is by doing the work and doing it up to par and showing that young entrepreneurs are serious entrepreneurs.
Sure.
That's very true. In fact, I concur with quite a few things that were said here. Just starting with what Alina was saying, what one of my mentors likes to say is, you're not a college startup, you're a startup. And I think that's just the first frame of reference that you have to put yourself in. When you want money as a university student, you can't go there with university grade pitch decks and university grade metrics. Your stats, your facts, your figures need to look like what any other business would. So that was the first thing. It was exactly what Alina's saying. You're not a college startup, you're a startup. And so that just has to do with proving the stripes. But then linking to a point about guys who are really high up there and getting them to back young guys. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals who have reached those points can't relate anymore, even if they once were there. They genuinely, and in truth, guys forget. And I think one thing I've learned though is that if you ask for money, you're probably going to get advice. And I'm not even lying. I went to some very influential people and just went and asked for advice. And I built an advisory board, which I think was probably one of the best decisions that ever helped both of my organizations. Having advisory boards where you're meeting on a quarterly basis, they're assessing your work, they build a trust relationship with you. And if anything, the advice you get can be invaluable. But our first investor came from one of our advisors who then knew someone and was willing to put his reputation on the line to get us an investor. And it was someone who was pretty high up and high profile. But I don't think had I gone to them and had the conversation with them, they would have been willing to put money into my business. But given that I went and asked someone else for advice, and over a long period of time, and look, it wasn't an engagement that happened over like 2 months or anything. It was like a year's worth of advisory. But we got to a point where he was willing to back me as an individual and to put his name on the line to land me and invest. And I think that's sort of the idea. It's one, you have to prove your stripes and not be a college startup. But two, build a network of advisors who can then be the ones who talk to pretty high-profile people on your behalf.
Very true. I'm reminded of a song. One of the hip-hop, as young people love hip-hop, says, "I ain't gonna quit, and no." So the massive point of to take home that came out of this panel is don't ever quit, and make sure that you build from your purpose and your passion, and make sure that you earn your stripes, work hard, understand financial literacy, and be able to understand that whatever you're building is for value. Thank you so very much to this panel that we had this afternoon.